Hello and welcome. Hearing loss is the #1 disability in our country, and yet I think it's not understood very well. I know as I prepared for the show tonight, I learned a lot, and I think that most of us can learn a lot when we really delve into this topic. So I'm delighted to have you joining us tonight. My guest tonight is Tony Davis. Tony drove up from Mankato. He is a man who has hearing loss, and he's also a professional in the field. He's a specialist with the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services of Minnesota, and he's, as I said, based in Mankato. So we're going to hear about his life, but really more focusing tonight on treatment options, some of the new technologies, communication tips, ways to communicate better, and some of the coping strategies that people use. So it's a full half-hour packed show. I'm glad you could be with us. Well, welcome, Tony.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us and tell me some about your hearing loss, when it started? Were you dealing with it from birth?
Yes.
Give us the basics.
Okay. So I was diagnosed with hearing loss at about age 5. So I was slightly hard of hearing, mild hearing loss. I grew up with hearing loss throughout my life. At about age 21, I was talking on the phone one night. I can't even remember who it was. And all of a sudden, my right ear was gone. And I couldn't hear at all out of my right ear. And then at about age 35, I went to sleep one night. I woke up and my left ear was completely gone. And so I was completely deaf in both ears at about age 35.
Now that's an unusual story, I'm guessing?
Mm-hmm. It is. It's called late deafness. It's where somebody acquires hearing loss after the development of speech. It often happens in people in their middle age or even older. It can happen in younger generations as well. So it's very uncommon in some ways, but common in other ways. It's not treated. Light deafness is not treated. Sometimes, if you get to the doctor soon enough, to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, they can give steroids, which can sometimes bring the hearing back some, but not common to have hearing come back at that point.
There are a lot of different causes. I want to stop just a minute and introduce Tony's interpreter. I'm sorry I didn't introduce you.
That's quite all right.
In the beginning. I was so eager to talk to Tony. This is Sharisse Leier. Charisse is an interpreter. And what language are you using, Charisse?
I'm currently using American Sign Language, ASL.
Which is probably the most common?
That's correct.
Okay. And how long have you been an interpreter?
I've been interpreting now for about 13 years.
It's fascinating and beautiful to watch, too. I think we all enjoy watching and wish we could speak like that. And you are also with the Department of Human Services.
Yes, I am.
As you are, Tony.
That's right, yes.
Well, we'll talk some about some of the other causes. You know, as you said, yours is somewhat unusual. Let's talk a little bit about numbers. I said in the intro that it's the #1 disability, but I also read that 20% of the population has some degree of hearing loss. Is that correct?
That is correct. So 20% of the population has a degree of hearing loss. From ages 65 to 75, 33% of the population has hearing loss. From ages 75 and up, 50% of the population has hearing loss.
So 1 out of 2.
1 out of 2. Then about roughly 48 million people have hearing loss, and about 50 million people have tinnitus with that hearing loss or just tinnitus on its own.
And define tinnitus for us, because I've heard about it, and it sounds to me like it would be a condition that would be very hard to handle.
It is very difficult to handle. It's a ringing of the ears or those types of sounds. The nerve is reacting and oftentimes ringing. It can be brought on by conditions such as Meniere's disease, but also many people with noise-induced hearing loss suffer from tinnitus.
And noise-induced hearing loss, as I understand it, is the most common cause of loss for people over 50 or over 60. Is that correct?
It is the most common cause of loss in general.
Oh, in general.
In
Okay.
general, but also in that age range. Some loss is just age-induced, and as we age, we have further loss.
Right.
And that's natural to a degree. But also just what brings on noise-induced hearing loss is, for instance, running your lawnmower, running leaf blowers at home, a lot of the different types of equipment that we have.
Going to the Vikings game.
Going to the Vikings game, I just read an article or 2 articles about that. It's one of the noisiest places anybody could go to, and that can certainly cause hearing loss. Even a one-time exposure to a game like that could cause hearing loss.
So one should really, when doing the lawn mowing, the leaf blowing, the Vikings game, we should be wearing earplugs, right?
We should, or maybe even more, maybe even ear coverings. I'm not sure that people would go to the Vikings games with ear coverings, but maybe they could make them purple and yellow.
It's a good idea. You should patent that, Tony.
Yes, so there's many things that can cause hearing loss or noise-induced hearing loss.
And with children who develop it, is that something that's hereditary, or is it some kind of a genetic fluke?
It can be hereditary. There can be many different causes. There can be diseases during pregnancy and so forth.
Like high fever?
That's right. Many different causes of it. Roughly 2 to 3 children out of 1,000 children are born with hearing loss. But the good news is there's definitely testing that happens with all newborns now. And so they're able to catch hearing loss at a very young age and help parents to be able to know what to do for their children. And there's wonderful organizations out there as well that are there to support children, such as Minnesota Hands and Voices, which is an exceptional organization. And they offer resources to parents and to their children, and they connect these parents with newly diagnosed children with hearing loss with other parents that have children with hearing loss as well. So it's an excellent support system for them.
It sounds great. In terms of some of the coping strategies that you've developed and that you help as a social worker other people develop, what are some of your favorite things just in terms of dealing with the emotional aspects of being a person with hearing loss?
Well, if we're looking at acquired hearing loss or hearing loss like late deafness, where somebody loses their hearing loss later in life, there's often a grief process that comes with that. Much like losing a loved one or losing a body part from diabetes or so forth. So there's a grief process that comes with that. And oftentimes people suffer embarrassment because of their hearing loss, and they withdraw, they isolate themselves. And one thing that we do is try to help them through the process of understanding that they have hope, that there's hearing aids, that there's technology for them. We have, for instance, on our staff, Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services, we have mental health counselors that specifically work with those persons with hearing loss, and that can help the grief process. We have support groups that are out there, like Hearing Loss Association of America, which is an excellent support group, and they actually meet here in the Twin Cities. And it allows people with hearing loss, especially new hearing loss, or even who've had hearing loss for a while and are kind of trying to figure it out, to connect with others with hearing loss.
That would be important, I'm sure.
That would be
just
important.
Being in the same boat, that's a big, big thing.
It is.
Some of the techniques that are used by you and by others to help people learn how to communicate better were kind of obvious, like sitting close so there's good eye contact. But tell us some of the others. Not using contractions. I thought that was a important one.
Okay. By contractions, meaning?
I'm not instead of I am not.
Oh, okay, okay.
Isn't that, is that one that you use?
Absolutely. Clear speech is very important. We ask people to, if they can avoid it, over-enunciating, because oftentimes that makes it more confusing. We ask people to be aware of the environmental sounds. What are those environmental sounds that are happening around them? Is there a buzz of a refrigerator? Is there traffic nearby? Can we close the door?
Turn down the volume of the television, correct?
Absolutely. Every time I go into a house or I go into a place to meet with someone, the first thing I ask is, can I please turn off your TV?
Right.
If not, I won't hear them.
Yeah.
And it's distracting, and it makes it difficult for me to be able to hear. It also makes it difficult for them to be able to hear.
Right. I mean, multitasking, I think we're learning, isn't so good for the brain, right?
Right. It's difficult to focus when you have many things going on around you. Another example of what people can do is not to multitask when they're talking with somebody. For instance, if we're so busy in this world, we get really busy and we do many things at once, which is great and which is needed. But when we're talking with somebody with hearing loss, we need to focus on them. We need to look at them directly. We need to be clear and give them the attention that they need. Because if we're looking around, it makes it difficult to read their lips. It makes it difficult to, just for the person who's hard of hearing, to be able to focus on what's being said.
So when you and I talk, you're partly doing lip reading. Is that correct?
At this point, I'm using the interpreter, and she's using the sign language, and I'm able to gather my information like that. However, if I didn't use sign language, which most people don't, that are hard of hearing or light deafened.
Most don't, okay.
Most do not. If I was not using sign language, I would probably be using lip reading if I didn't have extra technology to use in that situation, like hearing aid technology. So it would mostly be lip reading.
So in that sense, that is why enunciation, but not over-enunciating, is important, correct?
Yes, it's important not to over-enunciate, because it's important to actually keep the voice consistent and flowing and just at normal tone. Actually, when people speak too loud, it can make it very difficult.
And quite often people think that they should talk louder, don't they?
They do. I remember going to a Burger King when I lived in Virginia and ordering something, and the person recognized I had hearing loss, and he started yelling at me. There was 20 people behind me, and that was embarrassing. And then when I responded, startled, he went and got his manager and said, I don't know how to serve this person with hearing loss. So using voice that's too loud can be embarrassing, but it can also make it very difficult to hear.
I also heard, I was able to be at a workshop on this topic not long ago, and the speaker said to speak in phrases with some pauses between the phrases. Do you like that personally, or?
Sure. Pauses are good, but just the natural pauses. What does really help also is if somebody who I'm talking to will stay on a theme. So if they're jumping around from theme to theme, it makes it really difficult to follow. But if they can stay on a specific theme, that helps me to stay within the conversation and understand what's being said.
The distracted talker is hard for any
That's
of us, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so there's other techniques as well. Just facial hair, making sure that we groom our facial hair so our lips are not covered by mustaches and beards. And some people will chew on their pencils while they talk with people, or they'll do other things that are distracting to somebody who's trying to
Keeps
lip
their
read. Or
hands by their mouth, yeah.
yes.
So those are all really logical but important tips, Tony. You brought some wonderful new technological devices, and I want to have you tell us about them, because there is some wonderful new material here out for people who are hard of hearing and deaf. So let's take a look. And
Great. So this is just a fraction of the different technology that we have to demonstrate. We can bring much out to people's homes or to places of employment to show them. This is a personal sound amplification system, which is a PSAP. That's short
hold
for
it
that.
here so our camera person can see it.
Okay.
Now it looks, Tony, like a hearing aid, but you said it is not a hearing aid.
That's correct. So it looks like a hearing aid and somewhat functions like a hearing aid, but it is a sound amplifier and not a hearing aid. And these are not prescribed by audiologists or hearing aid dispensers. They're prescribed by, you can actually go into a catalog, or you can go to a drugstore, or you can go to one of the big box stores and buy those. But they are not for everyone.
But the good news, or what I think is exciting, is the price.
Absolutely. So the prices could be from $200 to $600 a piece. But again, it's important to realize that this would be for people with mild to moderate hearing loss.
Right.
That's slightly sloping downward, and it would not work for everyone.
So that's very important. But these are new, right?
They are fairly new. They're a new technology. Absolutely. And it does work for certain populations.
Then you also brought what is called a pocket talker, correct?
That's correct.
And I've heard great things about this, and there's a new version apparently.
This is the new version. It's the 2.0.
Let's see, I'll
And
maybe hold it too.
It's an amazing device, and it helps people by amplifying those things around them.
So you put this on.
You do.
Yeah.
You do, and then you just turn it up to the level that you need it at, and it does a fantastic job.
So you could put this on a table, a boardroom table, anywhere where you're in a group?
Yes, you could put it on a table in a group. You could take it with you to a doctor's visit. You could use it when you're playing cards or eating breakfast with your friends.
Okay.
You could use it in many settings. You could actually take an extension cord and put it next to the television. It could help in multiple settings.
So it's not just for group settings, which is
It could
what I
be
assumed.
one-on-one also.
One-on-one too.
Yep.
Wonderful. And this, you said, is a wonderful new updated version, correct?
That's correct, and it works amazing for certain people.
That's exciting.
Yes.
And what else did you bring here?
I would think that this is a good piece of technology to share. This is a streamer. It specifically is a Phonak ComPilot, and this can be used to listen on the telephone. So if I have my cell phone, I can actually put it down here on the table, and the cell phone would send a signal to this, which would then send a signal up to the hearing aid or the cochlear implant and allow the person to talk hands-free and very clear directly to the hearing aid.
We didn't talk about this earlier, but you do have a cochlear implant, which is a surgical procedure.
That's right. I do have a cochlear implant on my left and my right side. I only use my left side. And that enables me to be able to use this type of technology.
But not everybody can benefit from that particular procedure, can they?
The success rates of cochlear implants vary. The people who benefit the most tend to be people who are late deafened and who have lost their hearing more recently. However, there are many people who have profound deafness or who have been hard of hearing their whole lives who do benefit from cochlear implants.
And those I've read are covered by Medicare, but hearing aids per se are not at this point, correct?
That's correct. So hearing aids are actually not covered by Medicare, but some of the Advantage plans will pay up to $500 towards hearing aids. Medicare will cover cochlear implants. Medical assistance with the state of Minnesota will cover cochlear implants and will cover hearing aids fully.
Oh, they do, okay. But I've heard someone that I read said that there is a chance that the government Medicare updates may change in terms of coverage because of the baby boomers, because of the great need, really. Is that possible, do you think?
It is a great need. And if Medicare changes their policies and covers hearing aids, it will definitely impact so many people and give so many people a lot of hope and the ability to be able to hear well again.
So we need to write our congressmen and congresswomen, right? I want to ask you, we just have a couple minutes left, but there was one point that I thought we should really be sure to tell people, and that is that going to seek help when you are diagnosed or realize that you have hearing issues and need a diagnosis is very, very important in terms of your overall health, isn't it?
It is. Hearing loss definitely impacts somebody's overall health, and especially how their brain is functioning and working.
I listened to the wonderful video that is called Hearing Loss Matters, and we'll plug that at the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I was really surprised to read that or hear that if you have hearing loss and don't do anything about it, your chances of getting dementia go up tremendously.
That's correct. There's a correlation there that getting dementia or Alzheimer's can increase if you have untreated hearing loss. The brain actually shrinks with untreated hearing loss, and that's one of the reasons why if we get hearing aids, if we get accessories that work with hearing aids, if we use pocket talkers and do those types of things, then we can actually decrease the chance of getting those things that we don't want, such as dementia and Alzheimer's.
So it's a huge, important thing to remember. And is it true, Tony, that that the majority of people don't go to get help and wait about 10 years after they're diagnosed with hearing loss?
That's true, and some people don't even recognize that they have hearing loss because it's such a gradual thing.
They just keep turning up the volume and
They do, or they say everybody else out there is mumbling. It's not me, it's everybody else.
And they talk too fast.
They do, they do. And another risk is that if people don't treat their hearing loss as they age, they actually might be misdiagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's.
Oh,
because
that's
they may be sitting there in their nursing home or assisted living facility, not really responding to their environment. Somebody may mistakenly say, there's dementia there or Alzheimer's, take him to the doctor. When what actually happens is that the person's not hearing what's going on. They're not aware of their environment.
Sure.
Then they go to the doctor, and the doctor performs an exam, a status exam, and they say, respond, and the person responds way off topic, and they're not really able to perform the exam well. There's a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's when they have hearing loss.
So that's a huge motivator, isn't it, to get to the doctor? Well, we've got some resources that I want to mention for you, and we'll put those on the screen. I'm going to give you 4 resources, and I'd like to have you take note because these are very, very helpful. The first one is the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services Division. You can take down that website. Then the Telephone Equipment Distribution Program. The Hearing Loss Association of America, which you mentioned with the support group connection. And then Hearing Loss Matters, and this is a website that links you to a wonderfully helpful video that is one of the best videos in terms of giving information and lots of help. So I'd recommend you check that out for sure. Well, thank you so
Absolutely.
much for coming down,
you.
coming up, I guess, from Mankato,
up, yes.
and really sharing your story and the resource information you've had time for. I think we need to have you back, Tony, though, because there's so many more questions I have for you, and it's a big, big arena here that we're covering.
Very, very much so, and very important to cover it. So we'd be happy to come back and talk with you.
Well, thank you, and
Thank you.
thank you, Charisse. Very nice to have you helping and part of this.
Happy to be here as well.
Wonderful.
Good. Thank you for being with us. I'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.